Welcome.
Om Shanti, and thank you so much, sister, and my greetings to all those at Cinnamanson Center and the gathering from all over the world who is with us because of the COVID pandemic. We have suddenly lost all sorts of geographic boundaries, and we've started to function on a virtual reality. And I think this is quite relevant as a symbol, because the person that I want to speak about today, which is Brahma Baba, you can see his portrait just beside me. There's so many things that I can say about him. When I came in contact with the Brahma Kumaris, he had reached what we call the Karmateet stage 4 years previously. And so it was still very new for Brahma Baba to have left the physical body and who have adopted the body of light. So this transition took place on 18th January 1969. And so all of us who participate in the study and practice of the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University specially take time to remember him on this day. And what I would like to share with you is really his legacy. A spiritual tower is not a physical thing like the Twin Towers or the Eiffel Tower or something like this, but it's symbolic. Symbolic for a man who towered above everyone else. And he towered above everyone in so many ways, on so many levels. So I would like to share just a few of those so that you can get a sense of who this person is. I will not say was, but is. And why would I do that? Is because the first and most important legacy that he taught, and he was the instrument, the medium for the incorporeal supreme soul, the intelligence of the universe, to come through. And the first and most important message and legacy is that each person is in fact a soul, a being of light, pure, peaceful, powerful, loving, and this is what we all are eternally and immortally. And the physical body we have for some period of time, and at the end of our physical body we will call it the end of our life, that life, but it's not the end of our existence, not the end of our capacity to continue to be. And the practice of Raj Yoga, what we do, has a number of aims and goals. And one of them is this word which I just mentioned to you, Karmateet. Everybody knows the word karma. It's an international word now. And of course people interpret it in many ways. But Karmateet means someone who is free from all the accounts of karma. And this is what Brahma Baba, whose more formal name was Prajapita Brahma, the father of all the people, so he had achieved this. And having achieved that, as he left his physical body, he entered what we call the angelic body, or the body of light. So this body of light is invisible, but you can perceive it. And in what we call the subtle dimension of light, in the body of light, Brahma Baba became what we call Avyakt Karmateet. That is, he was able to be for a period of time on the same level as the Supreme Being and continue to communicate with us through a trance medium whose name was Dadi Hirde Mohini. And in this process of communicating with us, which was through sessions lasting several hours every few days, which gradually became less and less frequent. But during that time, a further legacy was given, the deep and subtle realities of spiritual practice and spiritual attainment. So this was a person who, as I said, towered above everyone else. And he was a person who had absorbed the full light, the power that can be absorbed from connection with the Supreme Being, which we call yoga. So the word yoga actually means connection, a connection between the soul and the Supreme Soul. And these days, in the world of high-tech communication systems, we are used to the internet, Bluetooth, all kinds of ways of communicating beyond the usual physical ways. So here, this evening, for me it's evening, for some of you it's morning, but we're all together in a multiple of time zones, but yet somehow beyond time. All the time zones become one time because we're all here together at the same time. And we're also beyond space because I'm in Germany, some of you are in America, some of you in other places, and we have, as it were, because of these communication technologies, we've dropped the limitations of geography and of time. And in the world of light, it is also like that. There are no limitations of time, there's even no day and night, and everything is operating on the basis of the power of thought. And to me, the advances in communications technology have mimicked many of the aspects of the power of thought. And the power of thought is very, very intriguing and extraordinary. A person has a thought, or a person responds to a thought that is given to them by another person, and they reach the destination of that thought. So the story of Brahma Baba is quite interesting. He was in his late 50s. He was in Calcutta, where he had his business, and his home was near to Karachi, his business in Calcutta, and his home in a place called Hyderabad, a small town near Karachi. And he started to experience being pulled to a higher stage of consciousness. He didn't know what was happening. He found himself more and more going into silence and isolation, being quiet by himself. His family didn't know what was happening. And gradually it became clear that he was connected with the Supreme Power and was receiving inspirations, messages, thoughts. And gradually everything became clear, and after a short period of time, he decided, okay, I must use my life only for this, only for spiritual practice, spiritual attainment, spiritual achievement, spiritual study. And his background was with the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, and the ideas and inspirations that were coming to him from a higher power, a higher source, was a completely different understanding of the Gita and of the message of the Gita, which made everything absolutely clear. And because everything was so clear, he was able to apply it. And by applying it, he gradually reached the stage where we could call him a tower, a spiritual tower, who towered above all other spiritual masters in history. And yet, he is someone who is relatively unknown, even now, relatively unknown. We at the Brahma Kumaris, of course, know him very well, but generally he is not known. You can see, if you look at his face, that there is something very extraordinary behind that look. And it is the accumulation of deep study and spiritual light of his practice that created this. So what was his practice and his study? I would like to share this a little bit. He would be an instrument for a flow of information that would come through him, and that information clarified that everyone is an independent individual soul and never changes that identity. And the soul is forever, it is immortal, and it passes through a cycle of time, of historical events, and of change. So he understood about the changes that take place in the soul, where the soul first arrives on this earth complete and pure and perfect, and the effect of time and the effect of bondage to matter through negative karma causes the soul to lose power, to lose freedom, to lose virtue, and to come under the influence of negativity. And this is the human predicament. This is what everyone has to deal with. And we have been dealing with this for as long as there have been civilizations and religions that we know of. And yet, hardly anyone has been able to transcend that. And the speciality of Brahma Baba, it's our affectionate name for Brahma Baba, is that by studying and by doing the yoga practice, he was actually able to transcend the limitations of negative karma, karmic accounts from many, many births, and to reach this stage of freedom and to acquire what we call the angelic form. We also use the word Avyakt, and Vyakt means physical, and Avyakt means beyond the physical. So he transcended the physical limitation and is now, even now, functioning in the region of light that we call the subtle region, and he is able to reach anyone at any time through thought. The study also described about God. Who is God? What is God? Where is God? How do you connect with God? What do you receive from God? Is God really there? How do you know? what does it take to be in connection with God and have God in your life, regardless of your religious background. And even if you have no religious background, you can still do this. And the study described how you do this. What is God like? The form, the characteristics, the qualities, the activity. How do you connect with the mind? And it is something that is done through intensely focused concentration. So first of all, one has to practice what we call soul consciousness, to really be aware of the self as a soul, a being of light, operating through the body and living in the mind with God, and then on a day-to-day basis applying the detailed philosophy of karma so that every action, every word, every thought became accurate. And this was Brahma Baba's study and practice. And all of those who were around him learned this by listening to him, by watching him, by emulating him. And he always was ahead of everyone. He used to get up very early every morning, around 2 o'clock in the morning, and he would sit in meditation, practicing, connecting, communing, discussing with God, and opening himself, emptying himself, so that he could be the best possible instrument for God to work through him. And he was very successful in this. There are many obstacles, many difficulties that come to any person on a spiritual path, especially at the level on which Brahma Baba was practicing. And one of them is to get deluded, to get confused, to think that you are God, to think that you have power and that power can go to your head. But Brahma Baba was very grounded, and he was always very clear that God is God and he is just a soul, a man like other men. And he gradually understood that a soul is actually genderless. A soul reincarnates over a long period of time, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a woman, but always as a human being. And so he wanted to understand what quality of soul he was, what he had been doing with his lives over the course of time. And gradually he began to get insights about this and to understand that he could reach a very, very high quality himself. He could become the best among humans, but this was a deep and great task. And so for 33 years he practiced, he studied, he went into the depth of spirituality, and every so often he would announce, okay, it's not this, and all the notes would be thrown away, because he understood that he had to go to a higher level, to a more subtle level, and leave aside the level that he was on before. So every few years it would change like this, and then all those who were studying with him would also leave everything and move to another level. And this was a slow process. He started this in around 1936, and the first 14 years the gathering was about 300 people, all from the same town of Hyderabad in the province of Sindh, which is now in Pakistan. And they had moved to Karachi in about 6 or 7 large houses, and they studied and they practiced very deep meditation and reached a very high stage of spiritual achievement. Then this was interrupted by the Second World War, and also Gandhi was very active in his work of achieving independence from colonial powers. And then it became clear that he and the gathering needed to move to India. And so they came to India in the time of partition, which happened in 1947, 15th of August. And then Gandhi was assassinated a year later, and everything descended into civil war. The non-violent revolution effort that he wanted couldn't be achieved ultimately, and it was quite a severe bloodbath. But Brahma Baba and the gathering went in 1950, so for those 3 very tumultuous and violent years, they stayed like us in COVID. We're in lockdown, so they put themselves in lockdown, and they just did very deep meditation and brought the feeling of the protection of God to themselves, and they prepared themselves for the next phase, which was in India. And they settled in the headquarters at Mount Abu, and it was there that Brahma Baba went into a much deeper level of practice and study, and he remained there until the end of his physical days on the 18th of January of 1969. A very close friend of mine, Sister Chandru, we stayed together many years in San Francisco, and then I was in Los Angeles, but she knew him personally very well, and she used to spend time talking to me about what it was like to be with him. And she said that one day, just a few days before he left the body, she was there in Mount Abu, and she caught hold of his hand, and they were walking along, and she said his hand was like cotton wool. It was so soft that it was almost like not physical. It's like he had almost been already in this angelic form, this body of light, and this made a very, very deep imprint on her. And she felt that, yes, he is already in that angelic form. And many others talk about this who were there with him. And I had the good fortune to spend about 10 years in Mount Abu continuously. Of course, I would go every year, once, twice, 3 times sometimes, where we would meet Baba in the Avyakt form and listen to the teachings and spend time interacting, have meditation together, and be in this extraordinary mountaintop ashram, which basically no one really knew about in the world. It was very unknown. And the atmosphere was electric, full of light, extraordinary, and everyone felt they were just filled with this electric light energy that pulled them into a really high stage of soul consciousness, where everyone felt deeply connected with God and able to be, like Brahma Baba, open, absorbing, and inspired to live and be and understand as we were being taught by the Supreme Being. And all of this is about what does it take to make this world a better place. And the key teaching is that one individual person is like a microcosm. And whatever one individual person who is in their power and close to God and living according to the spiritual teachings, the spiritual wisdom, they become that which causes the macrocosm to be the way it is. And the macrocosm is the whole world. And when we're talking about the whole world, we say the human predicament. People have weaknesses, addictions, vices, problems. They get upset, and mental problems, physical problems, financial problems, relationship problems, confusion. Things don't work out, they react, there's violence, there's prejudice, preconceptions, all sorts of things in this world which make life, for some people, real hell, and for most people, quite difficult. And yet we're surviving it. But we don't want to be in survival, we want to be thriving. And so Brahma Baba understood that it was possible for him to make his life so genuine, so accurate, so full of wisdom and deep depth of understanding, and to fill himself with the energy and qualities of God, that he could transform himself at the level of the subconscious, which is very deep. Because in your subconscious, that's where all your negativity lies, your monsters lie, all the dark side is there. So he went deep into himself, cleaned out everything, purified himself through his meditation and his study, and he ultimately reached this angelic form. And so he is a very inspiring example to all of us. And he has also given us the faith that, look, if he could do it, then we can also do it. Maybe we cannot do it at the level that he did, but we should definitely do our best and become also such microcosms who influence the macrocosm. Not an influencer like someone on social media, but something much more subtle than that. An influencer by your being, by your quality of thought. Imagine someone who doesn't have any thoughts that are trivial, meaningless, unkind, unpleasant, dark. Nothing like that. Brahma Baba was a person who at the level of thought reached the ideal that he set for himself and the ideal that God presented to him. And when a person has a mind that is pure at that level, then that mind has power. And whatever thought you think, when the mind is completely uncontaminated by anything other than pure thought, then you have a thought, that thought becomes reality. Brahma Baba was a great humanitarian, and his thoughts initially were to raise the status of women, the condition of women and girls, because it was really not good at all and they had no rights. So he created the school where especially women were able to follow the path of spirituality, and he arranged all the facilities so that there could be no difficulties. And he created a gathering of incredible women who were also able to reach the Karmateet stage. And so we call these women the Dadis, and most notable Dadi Prakashmani, who continued Brahma Baba's work for a further 40 years, so even longer than Brahma Baba himself. And all of these were young children when they came. Brahma Baba was already practically 60. So this whole process of shifting consciousness, individual by individual, and hidden away from the eyes of the world, just quietly on this mountaintop, moving around in different parts of the world to share the message and to practice meditation and spiritual wisdom. And gradually it created a force. And this force continues to grow. It's a great energy. It's invisible, but very influential. So I could continue for a long time, but I will stop there. And I would like to invite you to join me for a few moments of meditation so that you can get an idea of what this practice is that Brahma Baba taught and that we also apply even now, and many, many people across the world are doing this. So first of all, allow yourself to turn within and think of yourself as a pure, peaceful, loving, powerful, and blissful being of light. Just a point of light, full of those energies, pure consciousness. Seated in the center of the forehead, animating this body with your energy and expressing yourself through your body. And for meditation, go deep within and let yourself detach from the consciousness of the body and just be that light. A pure mind who is quiet and beautiful. You have the power to focus your attention above and beyond. Going beyond the material world, beyond the world of the subtle bodies of light, to a world that is only light, the home of souls, the region they call Nirvana, totally still, silent, with its own light. And there you encounter that one, the higher power, the supreme light. The father, mother, teacher, guide, friend of all souls. Go there. He waits for you. Open yourself and let that light flow into you. Feel yourself in the ocean of love. Beautiful waves of love surround you, and you immerse yourself in that extraordinary energy. You feel amazing happiness to be you and to be with that one is the most beautiful experience. Let yourself be still and stable and know that that one is with you. And it is enough just to be. That light and that love passes through you and streams through your being and reaches the world, the earth, the people of the earth, the elements of nature. You are a conduit for that energy to stream through you. And in your mind and your heart, you hold the whole world with love, with compassion, in peace. And then let yourself gently return back, reconnect with your body. Feel that light and love with you, and let it inspire your feelings and actions that you express in this world through your mind, your voice,